Thank you. I'm Emily Saldenridge. I'm the program manager for the MPDES program. And we talked a lot about roads, but if you build a road and it rains, then you become a drainage department as well. So water matters a lot to us, and our team, we have a lot of passion for water, and it's something that I want it to matter to you guys today. So as a little icebreaker to jump back into the swing of things, we're going to do a poll. So instead of putting your cell phone away, take them out. And this is software, it's called Poll Everywhere. And to get started, you can either text or internet, and your prompts are up here. So if you're texting, you need to text DelDOT 1 to 22333. And then if you're doing it online, the URL is up here as well. And it does say answers to this poll are anonymous, so your phone numbers don't pop up. But once we keep moving along, please refrain from putting anything into the text that's not appropriate that you wouldn't want on the screen. So we're going to do a series of 4 trivia questions, and this is our first one. So true or false, the water from your faucet could contain molecules that the dinosaurs once drank. So again, you have to text to that number first and DelDOT 1, and then you'll text A or B for true or false. It said it was active. Well, you know, it's all right. We can keep moving through this one. It should be polling, and then your bars move as people send their messages in. But hopefully you guys said true for this one. I'm not sure what you guys were thinking for this or not. But the same molecules of water that were on Earth long ago are the same molecules that we still drink today. And I think it's so important to remember that, because everything that we do on the land surface is eventually making it into our water cycle and our water system. So if we think in terms of residence time, which is something we do a lot as environmentalists, within the state of Delaware, the residence time in general for surface water is as little as 20 years, but as high as 40 to 60 years. So that means your bucket of water that's in that particular pool as it's moving through the cycle, that contaminant in that thing of water could be in the system anywhere from 20 to 60 years. So what we're doing today is directly affecting our children and even younger. And another tidbit I thought was really interesting in terms of when we do have a rain event, on average, only about a third of the water that precipitates actually makes it back into our groundwater system. So it's a pretty complex cycle. So if we want to go ahead and go to the next one, if the poll's active. Okay, I don't know if you guys can hear that. There's an error on the screen saying DelDOT 1. It needs to be text DelDOT without the 1. And I should mention, if you get a little pop-up on your phone that says charges apply, they don't. If you have a texting plan, it's just like any regular text message. So it sounds like the poll was working now. Okay, so can we go ahead and go to the next one? So once you're already in the poll, it should work that you can just text your answer to the same message. So this one is a self-generated thing. You guys are going to populate the answer for me. I'm not going to give you options. So the question here is, what is the source of your drinking water? Remember, keep it clean. You'll get filtered out. It's not working. All right, I guess it's still not working, so a bust on the technology for today. But it should have populated a lot of different answers. Can anybody shout out, what's your source of water? Any ideas? Rain? well, groundwater. One we hear a lot is the faucet. That's one of my favorite ones, because I'm like, that's great, but what does that mean? So for those of you who live north of the canal, you're actually surface water. It's largely from the Brandywine Christina, and that is what about 75% of our water comes from, that area. So that's if you're north of the canal. If you're south of the canal, it's typically groundwater, and your groundwater comes from a lot of unconfined sources. So it's just something to keep in mind if you think about where your drinking water comes from, and again, what you're putting on the ground and what is cycling through the system, that you can directly impact your groundwater. And I think another really important point is that we all live downstream. So even if your well is here and your septic is here, your neighbor's septic might be here, and then the well over here. So wastewater return flows and things of that nature are also really important in our drinking water supply. So again, remember that we're at some point drinking everybody's waste in the state of Delaware. Fun facts. And my last little bit on that question is in Delaware, over 90% of our surface waters are impaired with nutrient pollution. And so I think it's all just important to keep it in context that we have dirty water in our rivers, but that is our drinking water source. So it's really critical for us to continue to do the right thing and keep the water clean. So my next one, that it's not working on the poll, but it was a true-false. So maybe we can do it with raising hands if you think true, and then I'll raise hands for false. So the question is, about 25% of all bottled water comes from a municipal supply. True? All right. False? Should be everybody else. The answer for this is true. I actually thought it was a little bit higher when I started to look into it. But in the U.S., it's Dasani and Aquafina, and they produce about 25% of the bottled water supply that's sold on the shelves. And it is just tap water. It's treated water that then goes into your bottle. So a lot of people, when they get the bottled water, they think, oh, this is fresh from a beautiful spring, and like you have these great pictures in your mind. But in reality, it's the same thing. And for a lot of us, especially at DelDOT, I always think of the low bid. We're all bottom line. And if you are to think about it in terms of cost, on average, the bottled water, 1 gallon, costs about $1.11. But if you think about what comes out of your tap water, it only costs about $2 for every 1,000 gallons. Granted, it depends on who your water supplier is. But that is an incredible difference in cost. Thousands of gallons that you can get for really nothing compared to $1 for a gallon. So next time you go and you pick up that bottled water, which I love to see right here, maybe you guys will think about that in some of your choices. And then the last question I have, which goes with the graphic that's up here, is on average, how many gallons of water are required to grow a day's food for a family of 4? So let you guys think about it, and then unfortunately I don't have the poll for you to do your answers. But hopefully you're thinking in terms of thousands of gallons. So on average, it's about 6,800 gallons of water to provide food for a family of 4. That's a tremendous water footprint. So this graphic that's up here, if you Google LA Times food water footprint, has a really cool interactive thing to show you. You can select different options for meat. You can look at what a vegetarian meal, what that water footprint would be, versus if you have meat, and then also what your drinks are. You can cycle through that. So in terms of bringing it back locally of things for us and why we would care, in the state of Delaware, about 55% of the water that we use goes to ag. And that all occurs over about a 4-month span, which is the same amount of time in the summer where it's the peak drought that we also need our drinking water supply. So we really put a heavy burden on our water supply in the state of Delaware. And the last piece for this is, over time, we actually have done a good job of becoming more efficient in our water use because of plumbing codes and things like that. So we have been able to have a blossoming population still within about the same water footprint in the state of Delaware. So it's not all doom and gloom, but some fun facts to kick off the day. Sorry the poll didn't work, but check this out here at some point if you get a chance. Thank you.
right, Emily, thank you so much. That's a bummer that didn't work. Okay, so next is Brian and John are going to talk about the Lewis area projects for us and give us an update on what's going on down south.
Okay, so before we begin, my name is Brian Behrens, this is John Gaines, and we work in Project Development South. And we're here today to show you a little bit about what we're working on in the Lewis area. The department in the recent past has had a pretty good focus in the Lewis area. Just recently, we've got the new DART facility just south of 5 Points, the Lewis to Georgetown Rail to Trail project that's nearing completion. And the 5 Points Working Group really doing a good job of getting stakeholders to give us some input, generating some support locally, and that'll eventually lead to some recommendations for us to consider as we move forward. But John and I are here to show you about some of the projects that PD South is working on in Lewis. So they'll both supplement some of those earlier efforts and then implement some new infrastructure of their own. So to get you some, this thing's really delayed, huh? Just to kind of show you where we are. This is Lewis in the 5 Points area. If you're not familiar with where that is, we're talking about right here. So a lot going on. Just going to identify the major corridors that we have. This is SR1, SR24, US 9, Savannah Road, Kings Highway, and Plantation Road. So the first corridor that we're going to focus on is SR24, and John is going to lead us through that.
Green one advance it. All right, so like Brian said, I'm John Gaines. I'm project manager in PD South. Myself and Jim Satterfield and Mark Whiteside are managing 5 different projects along the SR24 corridor. I think I have these out of order, but I'll go from the far side. All 5 of these projects stemmed from the HSIP project years ago. We're finally getting them closer to construction. This one shown here is actually the Phase 2 Love Creek to Mulberry Knoll. You can see the creek there. And did I have them right? All right, how do I go back, Pam? The red button?
The red one.
Oh, well, I'll just speak to it. So Phase 1 actually starts at SR1 and heads west towards Mulberry Knoll. That would be this terminus. This is actually pushing the 5-lane section that exists today further west through the intersection with Plantation and Warrington, and then tying back to match existing. The second piece will then pick up that typical section, push it through the Mulberry Knoll intersection, west beyond the intersection with the schools, and then tie back to a 3-lane section from there to the Love Creek Bridge. The first piece is currently in right-of-way acquisition. We're looking to PS&E this summer with construction to start in spring. It's an $8 million estimate. The second piece, we have final right-of-way due in May of this year. We're looking at PS&E in fall of 20 with construction in spring of 21. This one has an estimate of $11 million. Ideally, we're looking to have the contractor start on Phase 1 and be timed so it just flows right into Phase 2. The other 3 projects are safety and operational improvements at 5 intersections to the west of Love Creek. The first at Camp Arrowhead and Angola Road has right-of-way due this month, PS&E in November of 20, construction in spring of 21, and an estimate of $4 million. The next is at SR5 and 23. We currently have right-of-way in acquisition. PS&E summer of 20, construction spring of 21. Estimate $7.5 million. And the last one is at Mount Joy and Bay Farm Road. This is also in right-of-way acquisition with a July 2019 PS&E and construction in spring of 20 with an estimate of $8 million. As you can see, we have a lot of projects coming in a condensed area along one corridor of SR24. I don't want to preach any doom and gloom like Mr. Hastings, but these projects are all coming within a very short window, and there's going to be multiple projects in construction at the same time. Traffic safety is actually heading up a working group to try and coordinate all these projects. A large part of that effort is going to be smart work zone technology, which hopefully will alleviate some of the problems out there. And our construction section has also hired Tom Greaves with Century Engineering to coordinate all of these construction efforts. So it'll be one consistent approach, which will be great for the public involvement, for the utility coordination, for impacted property owners, and of course for dealing with the contractors. With that, I'll turn it back over to Brian to talk about some of these larger efforts.
Thanks, John. All right, so that was a little bit about SR 24 and everything that's coming with that corridor. The next one we're going to look at is Plantation Road. And the limits of this extend from US 9 near 5 Points all the way down to tie in with John's projects at SR 24. And a lot like SR 24, we're planning to build this one in 2 phases. That's kind of a recent change that the department has made just in the last few months, really, over the fall. Kind of realizing that the area at 5 Points could use a little more attention, probably sooner than we would have been able to deliver it if we were to build this in one project. So phase 1 is the one I'm going to just show you today, which is this area here in green, basically from 5 Points to about Robinsonville Road. So here is the concept for phase 1 of Plantation Road. The big takeaway here is we're going to try to rebuild Plantation Road in a lot of this open space that we have, where you see that's a 2-lane roundabout that we're proposing. And the idea is to kind of stretch that connector road that exists today between US 9 and SR 23 and basically just stretch it out and make it longer. Try to get as much queuing as we can in there, and then the 2 lanes will take it from there to kind of help flush out 5 Points at the busiest time. So we're talking about that movement right there. That's the problem movement, and this project should go a long way towards helping with that. It's currently in design right now. We're moving towards semifinal plans later this year, hoping to hit final right-of-way in the spring of 2020, and then with a PS&E target of summer 2021. So in addition to everything you see here, we'll be upgrading pedestrian and bicycle facilities throughout, and that is that project. The next one we're going to look at is along the Savannah Road corridor, more specifically Old Orchard Road, where it comes in at Wescoals Corner. And we're looking at doing a realignment project right here where that's highlighted in green. So this is a zoomed in map of where we're talking about. You have Wescoals Road coming in from the left of your screen off of SR1 and coming to a signal at Savannah Road. It goes through one unsignalized intersection there at Marsh Road before it gets to Savannah. And then you have Old Orchard Road coming in from the north tying into Savannah Road at an unsignalized intersection. So what we see at the signal is a lot of rear end crashes, which is suggestive of congestion. That's not surprising given where we're talking about. Summertime traffic is very heavy through there. And then but what's concerning are the angle crashes that we see at the unsignalized intersections. So the one at Marsh Road and then the one where Old Orchard Road comes in at Savannah. So the fix for that is we're gonna take that connection away. We're gonna remove the intersection at Old Orchard Road to Savannah. We're actually still gonna leave the road there, but we're gonna get rid of the intersection and then provide this smooth route like that. We're gonna realign Old Orchard Road to tie in at basically a 4th leg at Savannah Road, an extension of Wescoals Road. As I said, we're gonna leave Old Orchard Road in place, just taking away the actual connection to Savannah. There's still a lot of access and entrances and exits to some of the businesses that are there today. We wanna keep that. One of the other things that's cool about this project is we're going to be building a roundabout at the intersection of Marsh Road and Wescoals. That's one of the ones where we saw a lot of the angle crashes. So that's going to help solve that problem for us. Another hidden benefit of having the roundabout is that we increase the storage length for the left turning movement at the intersection, at the signal with Savannah Road. So if we went with a more traditional intersection, we'd end up striping in a left turn lane to go west, or east, excuse me, on this screen to basically go down Marsh Road and connect over to Kings Highway, and that would have cut that distance in half. So we get that extra storage with the roundabout plus the safety benefits. So it's not shown on this screen either, but just to the right of this is the railroad corridor where the Lewis to Georgetown Rail Trail project is. And we're looking at ways right now to try to provide a connection up to that, along with all the other bicycle and pedestrian connections that we're making as part of this project. So this one is currently in design. We're looking to hit final right-of-way plans in the spring of 2020, and with PS&E about a year later in spring of 2021. And the next one that we're going to look at is the SR1 and Minos Conaway grade separated intersection project, which is right here in this area on SR1. So this project has numerous safety and capacity benefits to not only SR1, but also to the surrounding local road network. Everything you see on this screen here are all of the unsignalized intersections and median crossovers where we see crash problems continually. And this project is basically going to address all of them. So just take you through a little bit of history with this project. It's been a project that was identified early on years ago in the corridor capacity program back in the 90s and early 2000s. And it wasn't initiated, though, until 2016. But a few years before that, we were studying a recommendation to look at a connector road off of SR1 southbound to provide a one-way road under the Nassau bridges, basically to accommodate boat trailer traffic that were kind of sticking out of the medians on SR1, trying to get over to New Road and back into Lewis. So we were studying that for a while, and in 2015, we had this concept to show what the alignment would look like. But at that time, it was found that there were significant risks and expenses associated with all of the structural modifications that would have needed to happen to the Nassau bridges to fit a road, the railroad, and a multi-use path under the bridges. So that led us to 2016, where we started the Minos Conaway project. These are some of the early concepts that were associated with this project. These also had significant property impacts, total acquisitions, and actually some difficulty in trying to accommodate all of the traffic movements that you would want to get with the grade separation project. So then that gets us to 2017, which was a game changer for us. Early in the year, our traffic section did a study at Tulip Drive, one of the more problematic intersections in the corridor. It's circled there in yellow. They looked at a bunch of different scenarios ranging from full signalization to median modifications to try to address some of the problems, the crash problems that we see there. But later in the year, it was the decision to decommission the Delaware Coastline Railroad, which is shown here. And that really opened up an entire new option for the project team and led us to the concept that we are now taking forward into design, which is shown here. So let me just take you through what this general concept is. We are basically using that railroad corridor that was decommissioned, and we're going to put a road there. That's where the Lewis to Georgetown Rail to Trail project is today. It's recently been paved. People are using it, even though it's not totally done. But we'll be accommodating that with this as well. So the idea is to put a road there and then connect it on either side of SR1 with service roads and ramps. We're basically retrofitting an interchange in at this location. And the way that we're going to do that is by shifting the SR1 baseline, basically. North of the bridge, we'll be shifting it slightly to the west and building a new, we're shrinking down the median to do that. And we'll be building a new road to the east, or to the west, excuse me, but for southbound traffic. And then we'll be actually using the northbound lanes of SR1 today. They'll become the service road once we're done with the project. We've selected roundabouts as the preferred intersection control type. That provides some added benefit as well under the bridge because we don't need to fit in turn lanes, so there's some width that we get to save on there, as well as the inherent safety benefits of roundabouts in the area. So just want to take you through some of the renderings that we did for some of our workshops last year. It doesn't show the roundabout here. At this time, when we had these done, we were not sure whether we were going to go with roundabouts or three-way stops or signals or whatever they may be. But it gives you an idea about what a road and a multi-use path may look like under that corridor. This is an overhead view looking at SR1, looking to the south, and you can kind of see where the northbound lanes tie in there on the left. That's where the service road is going to be. So you can see how much shifting we're doing and where we're building the new road to the west, the service road. The good news is we own a lot of that right-of-way already, and this is the concept we're moving forward with. This is just a blow up of the roundabouts that we're considering at each intersection control, the new intersections that we're building. And just, yeah, so this, I think that's the last slide for this. So the overall schedule for this, it's in design right now. It's an in-house design, which is something we're proud of. Nick Rigolino in Project Development South, who doesn't get enough credit, is the lead designer on this project, doing a fantastic job for us. And we hope to hit final right-of-way plans in the fall of 2020, and then PS&E 2 years after that in the fall of 2022. So we expect construction to begin on this in the spring of 23. I think, yeah. So the last slide here is just kind of a catch-all that shows everything we have going on in Lewis. Everything that's shown in yellow are active design projects. It's everything we just talked about, with the exception of 2. The one at the top left is SR1 at Cave Neck Road, grade separated intersection project. That just started design this year. If we carried it out even a little further, the next one up would be SR1 at 16, which just entered right-of-way acquisition phase. And then the one at the bottom is not a PD South project, but it's big enough, and it was mentioned earlier. It's the bridge over Lewis-Rehoboth Canal. It's just a big project for the Lewis area in general. I thought was worth mentioning. And then everything in blue is everything that's coming after. So basically, right around the time we get done with what we're working on right now, we're going to be starting on the next ones, which are, I'm not going to go through all of them, but there's a few corridors in there that we'll be focusing on, Kings Highway, and a little bit more of New Road, and then a couple spot intersection improvements as well. And this is just really PD South. There's a lot of other great initiatives throughout the department going on in this area as well. So that is it, I think. Yeah, that's it. So it's fun to be working on these kind of projects for us. And any questions?
All righty, thank you very much. Okay, so next we have an update on some M&O things and facilities. So Taylor is going to come up, and Laney, and is Brian Urbanic here or no? Okay, all right, so just those two.
All right, where's the important button?
So this is forward
Okay.
and back, and the laser pointer.
Laser pointer. All right, very good, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Taylor King. I work in the statewide support services section of M&O. Ashland, Virginia. Seattle, Washington. Philo, Illinois. Magnolia, Delaware. What do these places have in common? They all claim to be the center of the universe. Now, I'm obviously partial to Magnolia being a native Delawarean, and I'm sure John Lindale had lots of reasons when he put this sign in over 100 years ago, but he's not around anymore, so I'm going to say the main reason is Magnolia Maintenance Yard. Now, here it is 25 years ago, not as glorious as it is today. Notice just a small office and shop for our Area 7 crews, small office and shop for Area 21 crews, a tiny little salt dome, and a cold patch shed. Notice all the equipment parked outside, and notice the farm field on either side. This is what it looks like today. We have two 3,000 square foot offices, a 6-bay maintenance shop that's 10,000 square feet, 5,000 ton salt barn, and thousands of square foot of covered storage. Our mission at facilities is to maintain our assets in a state of good repair while also improving energy efficiency, bringing all of our yards up to that standard you guys just saw. 5 years ago, we did a building assessment. Turned out a little bit over than 50% of our buildings were considered in a state of good repair. 5 years later, we're doing a great job. We're almost up to 75%. So what kind of projects do we do? Well, here's a list, and I'll let you guys read that, but I think the biggest thing that's kind of unique to large capital projects in DelDOT is that we take everything from the planning stage to the project conceptualization, managed construction, all the way through final acceptance. So we're kind of jacks of all trades. We're not really good at anything, but we try and be decent at everything. but it's fun. This is Bridgeville Maintenance Yard. It was constructed, this is a completely new maintenance yard built in the middle of a farm field. This was replacing our Seaford Maintenance Yard, which was becoming dated, undersized, wasn't serving us anymore. I want to point out the blue building in the front, that's our crew quarters. This building is vital to any of our storm response operations. These guys spend days on the road responding to storm events, and so they need a reliable office that they can come back to, they can get some rest, they can get cleaned up and get back on the road and keep working. This is Middletown Maintenance Yard, just off 71 south of town. This project was more of a site-wide reconstruction. The center building was their original building. It has a small office space, small shop. It's 6 bays, but it's not very effective in how they can use it. So we recently constructed 3,000 square foot crew quarters. We have 2 new pole barns. We upgraded the generator for the backup power. In the background, you can see our big circus tent. We've got our 3,000 ton salt barn and then lots of hopper racks. So earlier I mentioned that picture of Magnolia from '95, that all of our equipment was basically out in the open. Our equipment has improved a lot, improved in capability, improved in technology, but with that cost, and we spend over $200,000 on a truck, and so it only makes sense that we get them under cover. That's why you saw so many truck sheds in Magnolia. That's why you see truck sheds here and in our other pictures. It's only makes sense to protect that investment, right? This is St. George's Maintenance Yard. You guys have probably seen it changing a lot lately over the past year. This was our old barn and trailers there adjacent to the Roth Bridge a year ago, and now we've got a 3,000 square foot office, 6-bay shop, 4 pole barns, and a 5,000 ton salt barn. Big thing about this project is that it's consolidating one of our maintenance areas, Area 22, that's been operating out of 3 yards for years. So this is really going to improve their efficiency and their ability to respond to issues. So a quick list of projects in the pipeline. We've got North District Phase 1, which is at Chapman Road. We're expanding north up 95. We've got Middletown Maintenance Shop, which is going to be on the back side of that picture I showed you a few slides ago. Harrington Shop, Gravel Hill Shop. The DOT's North Construction Building is underway, right, Hav? Back there, all right. A new Canal Expressways yard, so that maintenance area is going to be maintained in 301 and Route 1 for us, and then of course the Bear Administration Building. Okay, so this is our beautiful Bear Administration Building. How many people know about the new project? A few. All right, good. Well, in case you haven't been inside the building, we're doing this because the current floor plan doesn't suit our needs anymore. We have consistent maintenance issues, and it's an absolute energy hog. So our design team brought photos of other government buildings locally, nationwide. We kind of picked some different elements. They developed these 4 concepts for us. And being a democracy, we thought it was very important to get our tenants to vote on it. So we went through and we posted this up. So people voted, and option 4 won hands down for us. This is a picture that, shout out Jeff Armstrong, took for me on Friday, just in time, right, to turn the slides in to Pam. And this is what we're hoping it will look like in a few years. This is the reverse angle from Route 7. This is a Google Maps shot. So this is what our new building could look like. And we're very excited about this project, and we want you guys to get excited about it too. We were thinking about different ways to do this, and you know, a Lego model would be cool, but that would be really expensive and take my guys forever to put together. So we want to encourage you guys to open up your phones, open up this Augment app that we were talking about earlier. Okay, we pass out coasters during lunch. Those might have been for your sodas, but now if you could move your soda and pick up your coaster, we're going to go through a couple of screens. The first time you use it, there's a couple of screens. So once you get Augment opened up, I know you probably have to type in your super long DelDOT password to get into your phone. So this is your first screen here on the left is what it's going to look like. Click that scan button down there in the bottom. Hold the coaster in front of your phone about a foot away. It's going to ask you to say start scanning, and it's going to scan the image. Make sure you can see the coaster there. It might ask you permission to use your phone or use the camera on your phone. Okay, then it's going to ask you some questions. Are you standing? You can say I'm standing. You can say skip tutorial. It's going to give you another screen, skip tutorial, sorry. And then this is what you should be seeing. So now everyone can take home a 3D model of the new Bear Administration Building and put it in their pocket through augmented reality. And a quick shout out, Travis Plystack, our intern, he built this model in about 6 hours in Google SketchUp. And it's my brother Logan who introduced this technology to me. But the question is, so this is a cool party trick, right? Well, what can we do with it as a department? Well, we can take this out in the field. We can construct a 3D model of a sign structure, get our iPad, bring the model into the view, and see exactly what that sign structure is going to look like standing on the side of the road. Or if we're trying to figure out coordination and clearance issues, we can build a scale model of a bridge, open that up on our screen, and see exactly what it's going to look like where it's placed. But I think this is really where we're going to get our bang for the buck. We can integrate this into our plan sets and take a 2D model and allow a superintendent, a foreman out in the field to scan a 2D detail and get a 3D model that he can then articulate and turn and get a better understanding of what this is so that he can build it right the first time and build it to our expectations. And so I want to challenge you guys to see what you can do with augmented reality. And I challenge you to make DelDOT the center of the universe. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Lainey Thornton. I am the Director of Finance for the department. One of the units under the Finance Division is Facilities Management, and our team, we work collaboratively with Delaware Facilities Management on several of our administrative facilities to maintain the sites as well as to oversee the capital projects and the capital budgets for those locations. Our facilities are a bit different than maintenance and operations because they are owned and operated by the state, which is why we work so closely with Delaware Facilities Management. And we are currently in the process of developing a 10-year kind of comprehensive state of good repair plan for several of our sites, and trying to plan out the capital improvements, and we are performing site visits, which ultimately leads to, let's see, this. So I want to thank Mark Lutz for capturing this horrific moment in my life. It was the moment when I realized I wasn't sure if I'd be able to get off the roof of the TMC. I was able to get up, but not so sure that I was going to be able to get down. And I did not realize that he was taking photographic evidence of this adventure of mine. So never in a million years did I think my DelDOT career would have me on the roof of the TMC, but here we are. Some of the safety folks may not agree with the shoes I had on, so kind of learning through the process. So part of, let me see if I can get back. It's slow. Okay, let's see. And there, okay. So the facilities that we're responsible for managing are the Traffic Management Center, DMV and toll locations, and the Danner campus. Current capital projects going on at the TMC, we're obviously performing a roof replacement, which we hope to have started this summer. We're in the process, we've just awarded a generator redundancy project, which will link in the TMC and the DEMA generators so that we have redundancy for if there were ever an issue. There's a UPS replacement project going on, as well as floor plan upgrades. DMV and toll locations. So we've just completed a project at the Dover DMV, which was exterior work, providing better accessibility, replacing sidewalks, parking lots, and installed new storefronts, new doors to that site. We are getting ready to go to construction on the Dover DMV lanes, which is a window replacement. We are currently working on designing a project at Dover DMV, which would perform ADA accessibility work to the bathrooms and some of the other areas in the Dover DMV. We are currently finalizing a project at the Wilmington DMV, which is sidewalk parking and entrance repairs. And we've just completed a project at the Georgetown DMV, which was for workstation reconfigurations. At Danner campus, we've just completed a lower level ADA compliant new bat cave. So the individuals that were located in what was previously known as the old bat cave, they are now relocated into the basement of the administration building. We're in the process of finalizing design for an additional parking lot, which will go out front of the Danner campus admin building and supply an additional 53 spaces. There's an ongoing fire alarm replacement project. You'll see they're doing a lot of night work. You may come in and see that there's different conduit run, and that should go through the end of this year. We just completed a project both in the Farmington and Felton room, which was a water infiltration project, as well as the South Wing. The South Wing just received new carpet and paint improvements. M&O Business Management, they're getting ready to get carpet and new kitchen put in. We will be completing paving at Danner campus this spring. So we did a phase 1 and a phase 2 in the fall. So we're coming back to wrap that up and finish that project this spring. Our largest of our capital improvement projects this year is the East Wing Phase 2 Office of Civil Rights Compliance and Renovation project. So that particular project is addressing what was the Bat Cave, the cafeteria, what was the old kitchen, and that entire floor, that space, as well as the front entry and the rear patio. And then we're also working on an HVAC replacement feasibility study. So I have a few pictures to share with you. So this is the new Bat Cave, which was just completed a few months ago, and we have the staff members relocated to the basement, and this allowed for us to begin construction on East Wing Phase 2 project. So this is kind of existing pictures of the south entrance. You'll see we had some issues with the ramps and the front entry with ADA compliance, so that's really what's driving this project. And then here are some pictures as we started construction. You'll see that the kitchen is being taken out, and we'll show you what it's going to be replaced with. Here's existing conditions. Not many people had access to the Bat Cave, so this is kind of what it looked like before the contractors, I guess as the contractors got in there. This was where the reception desk was. So we're kind of opening up that area, and we'll give you an idea of what it's going to look like. There's the old cafeteria sign. And we're going to play a video for you. So this is the concept and what the renovation project will look like. So you'll see we're moving the ADA ramp from the left side to the right side. It's a full replacement of the area out front. And you guys are the first to see this, so this is exciting. And you'll see new front doors, new vestibule, all with proper clearances. new reception desk off to your right. So we'll be maintaining 2 reception areas, both a south entrance and a north entrance for the Danner campus. We're repurposing what was the Bat Cave. So this new conference room will, theater style, will hold approximately 80 people. We'll also have tables available so that if you wanted to conduct a training, approximately 50 people for a comfortable training. We've planned for being able to kind of tuck the tables away and the chairs away if you want to have a public kind of informational session. So then we'll take you through, this is, we'll have a couple different seating areas. So as visitors come into our facility, there'll be comfortable locations for them to wait. You're entering now what we refer to as the market. So in this walkthrough, it's empty. I'll give you some images when we're done with this as to what it'll look like. Providing enough seating so that staff members can, take their laptop down there if they want to work down there or hold a meeting. And then this is the rear courtyard, which if you've been to or work at the building, the Danner campus, you'll see it's there in the process of tearing everything out. Okay. So then this slide gives you an illustration of what the market will look like. So what we're bringing in is it's kind of an enhanced vending. There will be 300 to 400 products available. It's self-service, trying to add in healthy options. And then coffee bar. Let's see. There'll be sandwiches, soups, things like that. There'll be an area where you can heat them up and just kind of encourage staff to utilize this area. So Taylor and I had a bit of a competition going on with whose demo or video was better. So that wraps that up. Okay. Do you guys have any questions or? Questions? No? Listen to Pam. Okay. All right. Here we go. DelDOT Finance. So we're going to give you an overview of the financials for fiscal year 2020 and a bit of the processes related to the finance section. So I like to think that our story begins in 1987 with the passage of the Trust Fund Act. So this created the Transportation Trust Fund. Previous to 1987, we were funded through the general fund. The purpose of the trust fund facilitated a unified transportation system in the state. Took advantage of broad financing powers and really provided a dedicated resource for transportation-related projects. The TTF is the state's financing vehicle for all transportation expenses, and it operates as Delaware Transportation Authority. Sources of revenue for the Transportation Trust Fund: tolls, motor fuel tax, DMV fees, and DART fare box revenues. What do we use our revenues for? Basically, we first pay off our debt. We are responsible to pay our bondholders first. Personnel costs of the department, DART operations, we provide them a subsidy each month, and then what's remaining, we apportion to our capital program. So the flow of funds, we have both pledged and non-pledged revenues that go into the revenue fund. We first pay our debt service, then we cover our operating expenditures and our DTC subsidy, and what remains is for our capital program. Our pledged revenues are I-95 tolls and concession revenues, motor fuel tax, which is a 23 cents a gallon on gasoline and 22 cents for diesel. The DMV revenues, dock fee, registration fee, miscellaneous fees, and investment earnings. What is non-pledged are our SR1 tolls, any general fund contributions, Port of Wilmington loan repayment, Build America bond subsidy, and miscellaneous transportation revenue. For fiscal year 2020, we are projecting to bring in $900 million in revenues, and these are the categories which they come in through. You'll see that DMV revenues currently is our #1 revenue source, providing $221 million to the Transportation Trust Fund, which is then followed up by tolls for I-95 at $146.4 and SR1 $65 million. You will see there are federal funds in our program, which we'll talk about in a few slides. DTC fare box revenue, bond proceeds, interest, and miscellaneous revenue, as well as motor fuel tax. So then how do we use the $900 million? $91.5 million in 2020 is for debt service. $162 million is for DelDOT operations. DTC operations are $121 million. And you'll see the yellow and the green are what's going towards our capital program, $270 million state and $250 million of federal. So our operating budget, how are we going to use that operating funding? So our operating budget for fiscal year 2020, current governor's recommended budget is $365.9 million. US 301 accounts for $13.3 million. The DTC subsidy is 94, debt service 91.5, personnel costs of the department are $96.8 million, and operating is 60.3. So our operating budget history, I like to show this slide just because the department has done a wonderful job in trying to reduce our operating expenses. Really, the way that we think of it is a dollar saved in your operating budget is a dollar that you can spend in your capital program. So you can see back in fiscal year 15, when we had, looking at our debt service, we were paying over $100 million each year for debt service, $109 million. We've been able to reduce that down to $91 million, so that savings can then be invested into our capital program. You can see there is an increase this year. On the right-hand slide, you'll see year over year what our budget was in comparison to the year prior. So we've tried to reduce the budget and keep it under 1% increase year over year. For fiscal year 20, there is a significant increase, 3.8%, but that is primarily due to bringing US 301 online. So in 19, there was a small budget request. However, the significant impact to the operating budget will be occurring in 2020. So if you take US 301 out, we are well under a 1% increase. Our capital program. So what makes up our capital program? We have state resources, bond proceeds, federal funding, and any third-party contributions. So all of that together is what is allocated towards our program each year. For fiscal year 20, for the state category, we're projecting to spend $270 million for our state capital program, 16% support systems, 10% for transit, grants and allocations at 9%, and road systems at 65% or $175 million. Federal funding component. So currently, we're operating under the FAST Act. The department receives approximately $200 million each year in federal funding. So $175 million of that is from Federal Highway Administration and $25 million from FTA for transit-related projects. We are subject to an obligation limitation, so they apportion you a certain amount each year, which is the $200 million, but then you're only authorized to utilize 92% of that. So our capital transportation program is essentially is meeting two requirements. So it's meeting the state requirement of having an annual capital transportation plan, and also meeting a federal requirement of having a statewide transportation improvement program. It's a document that we produce annually, and it's governed and regulated by both state and federal code. It establishes our transportation priorities, and basically it's a project scheduling and funding document that guides the activities of the capital program. It involves a lot of collaboration with public transportation partners, or MPOs, or federal agencies, and so forth. Developing the CTP. So the budgets in the CTP are based off of revenue forecasts. So the finance division, we take into consideration historic information and what we believe our revenue projections will be for the future years. And we determine amount that can be budgeted for the capital program annually. We then we work with the planning division with Transportation Solutions to capture estimates and project schedules for the capital program. And we have a prioritization process. We do work with Drew and his team on the decision lens process, but also there's another process that takes into consideration the project readiness and the availability of our federal funding. So the CTP process, it's an 18-month process that we follow. It begins with receiving approval from the Council on Transportation to release the draft document. We present the draft document to the public in partnership with our MPOs. We submit the CTP to OMB, which is basically just the first year of our plan. The Budget Office reviews it and makes recommendations to the governor. The governor presents our capital budget as part of his governor's recommended budget to General Assembly. DelDOT and the COT hold public hearings. We present to joint legislature. We have our approval of the bond bill, which occurs in June annually. We update the CTP with any changes that may have occurred during that period of time. We coordinate all of those changes and make sure that our SIP is consistent with the MPO's TIP, their Transportation Improvement Plan. And then essentially our goal is to submit the CTP to our federal partners on September 1st to have approval of the CTP by October 1st, which is the beginning of the federal fiscal year. So that was the plan. How does it become reality? How does your project move forward? So project estimates are updated in Primavera. They flow into the FACS accounting system. We request that we receive annual program updates. We are looking at adjusting the time frame for what would be best to receive those project updates. Estimates are approved, funding sources are identified, and obligation codes are defined by what's based on what's been presented in the CTP. Then finance assigns a project number to all new projects. So authorization versus spend, I feel like this has been the burning question for forever. Basically, authorization is the budget approved by the bond bill committee for a specific project or phase of a project, and it's defined by fiscal year. The amount is based on the projects provided by the project management team. Most of DelDOT's projects spend over multiple years. So spend is the cash payments that are made for goods or services in a specific state fiscal year, which is that July 1 through June 30th. So spend, we have to estimate how much each project will be spending by fiscal year. Spend is very important to the finance division because we are required to report to DFAC, which is Delaware Economic Financial Advisory Council, 6 times a year. And we have to provide to them what our revenues are going to be and what our expenditures are going to be. So we use all of that information that's provided to the finance division to come up with kind of our answers for them as to how much we believe our expenditures are going to be for the entire department. Allotments. So an allotment establishes funding in the accounting system and must exist in order to set up an encumbrance to a vendor. Basically, it's committing funding for a specific task or agreement with a specific vendor. Or sorry, I'm jumped ahead, sorry. An allotment sets up the funding. A purchase order sets aside the funding or a commitment to a specific vendor. And another important thing to remember is without a purchase order, we shouldn't be issuing any notices to proceed. Payment voucher. Basically, it's an accounting document that's prepared to mirror an invoice received from a vendor. It issues payment to a specific vendor for a specific service or good. They're prepared in the fax system for capital projects, and there's a nightly process that uploads those into the state's accounting system. So here's our process, an overview of our process. Estimates are entered into Primavera. Fax receives the estimate information, a project number is assigned, authorization is issued, spend is issued, an allotment's created, which sets up the money on the particular project or phase. A purchase order is then issued to a specific vendor for a specific good or activity, and then ultimately we receive an invoice and a payment voucher is issued, and spend occurs when a payment voucher is processed. After all that, we're still not done because we have to close out the project. And I know Ryan talked about this a bit this morning. There are, in federal regulations, there's a period of performance that's defined for each of our projects. So there's a very clear start and end date. So part of what the finance division does is we monitor those start and end dates and ensure that the department is adhering to that period of performance. We oversee the closure of purchase orders. So we make sure that we're closing out the specific purchase orders to the vendor if that particular task or purchase has been completed. We then are responsible for releasing the funding if there is any balance on those projects after we've closed out the purchase orders. And then for each of our projects, we work with the audit section and have a final audit conducted, and we complete the project. So what must we adhere to? So there are various state and Delaware code and also federal regulations. The Finance Division is also responsible for operating out of Delaware's Budget and Accounting Manual. There's various IRS code and regulations, and also our trust indentures. And then how are we monitored? So each year we have an independent financial audit. We have random IRS audits, grant audits, and quarterly reports that we're responsible for conducting. We are also part of the state of Delaware single audit. We go through FTA state management reviews and triennial reviews to ensure that we are complying with all of the federal code and regulations for the FTA program. Annual disclosures to bondholders and rating agencies. And then, as I mentioned, we're responsible for reporting to DFAC as well. So that was all I had. If there are any questions that I can answer.